There's this vendor in Warframe that almost nobody thinks about, and it still surprises me every time. She's just there, tucked away, quietly offering some really good items that most players never bother to check. And the funny part is, if people actually paid attention to what she sells, it could make their grind so much easier. It's one of those things where the more you look into it, the more you wonder why almost nobody talks about her. Before we get into it, let me know in the comments if you've ever grabbed anything from this vendor, or if you honestly forgot she even exists. And hey, while you're here, feel free to like and subscribe so you don't miss more stuff like this. Also, I want to tell you that this topic may be controversial, as I really think that something needs to change so that this vendor will be more accessible to players. I know some will disagree, but before leaving a comment, I would really like you to watch until the end and know my reasoning on why something must change on this grind. Akrithis is found inside Duviri, and there are a few ways to reach her depending on what you're doing. You can talk to her in the Dorma Zone, where she stands next to the pylon that lets you access the lost islands of Duviri through the Codex. During an actual Duviri run, she appears riding in her carriage, and her location changes depending on the current spiral. After you defeat the Aura Worm at the end of a mood spiral, she also shows up in the courtyard of the King's Palace. If you want access to her full shop, especially her arcanes, you'll need rank 9 in your Drifter Intrinsics under Opportunity. Every week, Akrithis rotates a special set of 5 big-ticket items that you can buy with Pathos Clamps. These weekly rewards reset every Sunday, and they can include things like Forma Blueprints, Veiled Riven mods, Orokin Reactors, Orokin Catalysts, Exilus Adapters, and Kuva. Once you hit Intrinsics rank 9, you also unlock her Duviri Arcane Enhancements, which you can buy once per day. These arcanes are a big deal because some of them, when fully ranked, can sell for a lot of platinum. Same with certain Rivens. It's one of the easiest ways to make good platinum just by playing Duviri and checking her shop consistently. The best thing about Akrithis is her weekly reward rotation, because every week can feel completely different depending on what she puts up for sale. One week, you might see something like Longbow Sharpshot sitting in her shop, and the next week she might swap it out for something simple but always useful, like a Forma Blueprint. That's what makes her so good. Her rotation never feels pointless. You always have a chance to pick up high-value items, whether it's a Veiled Riven mod you can roll into something strong, or a Forma Blueprint you'll almost always need. Checking her every Sunday becomes a habit for me, because you never know when she'll drop something worth grabbing. But this is a downside too. Like every weekly rotation reward, you'll never know what you get from the vendor. And this is the reason why some Warframe players just forget about this vendor. Well, it's not the randomness of the reward, but you'll question yourself if it's worth farming. To get anything good from Akrithis, you need Pathos Clamps, and this is where most players stop. It's not that her items are hard to buy, it's that Pathos Clamps take some effort to farm, and a lot of people don't want to run Duviri over and over. But if you actually look at what her shop gives you, like Rivens, Arcanes, Forma Blueprints, Colorvo parts, Oraxia weapons, the most reliable method is still the Aura Worm fight at the end of a Duviri run. Every time you finish a mood spiral and beat the Aura Worm, you get a chunk of Pathos Clamps. On normal mode, you get 10, and on Steel Path, you can get 15. The fight isn't too long once you understand the pattern, and doing it consistently adds up fast. Even if you're not pushing Steel Path yet, normal mode is still a solid and steady source. Another strong option right now is running Isle Weaver, especially if you want quicker runs. This mode lets you take on a faster boss encounter, and when you beat the Fragmented, you get a chest with Pathos Clamps just like the Aura Worm reward. A lot of players prefer this because the pacing feels snappier, and depending on your setup, you might find it more efficient. It's a good alternative when you want a change of pace from the Duviri experience. Finally, you also get Pathos Clamps from the Undercroft side portals in the Duviri experience. These portals take you into short combat missions, and each one gives a small but reliable reward. On normal mode, you only get one clamp per portal, but on Steel Path, Each portal gives 3 Pathos clamps. If you manage to clear all 3 portals in a single run and then defeat the Aura Worm, the total jump in clamps feels really good for the time spent. But obviously, you will spend more time finishing the missions in the Undercroft if you want more Pathos clamps at the end of your run. In most cases, most players skip the portals and just focus on getting 15 Pathos clamps at the end. Steel Path Duviri, overall, is the fastest way to farm Pathos clamps if your builds are strong enough. Every reward is boosted, the enemies drop faster once you're geared, and the clamp payout at the end makes the effort worth it. A couple of efficient Steel Path runs with portals cleared can get you well over 20 clamps in a short session, which means buying multiple items from a Krithis suddenly becomes realistic instead of a slow crawl. Honestly, farming Pathos clamps today isn't nearly as bad as it used to be. Back then, it felt like you only had one real option, and the grind dragged on forever. Now we have more modes, more ways to earn clamps, and more flexibility in how we approach Duviri. But even with all these improvements, I still won't pretend it's always smooth. There are days when the randomness in Duviri hits hard, and that's when the grind starts to feel rough again. The biggest thing that can ruin a run is the randomized loadout. Duviri hands you a random Warframe and a random set of weapons, and when that RNG decides to be mean, you feel it right away. If I get a weapon I never touched, or some gear I didn't put a single forma on yet, I already know the run is going to be slow. And if it throws me a Warframe I don't enjoy using, yeah, that's when the fun drains out pretty fast. There are moments when I load into a run and immediately think, great, this is going to be painful. Some weapons can barely scratch enemies, especially on Steel Path, and being stuck with them for the whole mission is honestly the worst part of the Duviri grind. It's not even about difficulty, it's the feeling of being stuck with something you didn't choose. When the RNG is good, Duviri is fun. When it's bad, it's almost annoying enough to make me want to quit the run. That's why I always recommend running Pathos clamp farms in a team. Even if your loadout is bad, having more players makes everything so much easier. Someone might get a busted Warframe, someone else might get a high damage weapon, and all of that helps carry the team when your own loadout isn't doing much. It evens out the randomness a bit and turns a painful run into something manageable. And honestly, you'll almost always end up with a team if you queue public. Whether you're doing the Lone Story or Isleweaver, there's a good chance other players are also farming clamps or just doing their weekly Duviri tasks. Running with a squad makes the objectives fly by way faster, especially when the missions decide to stack multiple tasks in a row. It feels less like suffering through RNG and more like pushing through it together. So if you're farming Pathos clamps, don't torture yourself by going solo unless you really want to. Go public, go with friends, or just jump into whatever team the game gives you. More people mean faster kills, quicker objectives, and fewer moments where you're stuck dealing no damage with some unmodded weapon you forgot existed. It makes the grind smoother, and honestly, a lot more bearable. I've said this a few times already, but I honestly think the random loadout system in Duviri needs to change. I get why some people like it, because it pushes them to use Warframes and weapons they normally ignore, and it gives them a reason to grind mastery. But let's be real, forcing players into gear they don't enjoy isn't the right way to make that happen. If DE wants people to revisit old gear, then the better solution is to rework those mastery rank Warframes and give older weapons something like Incarnon versions. Make them exciting again, not mandatory through RNG. I really hope Digital Extremes eventually removes the random loadout system from Duviri, because it's just so much better when you're actually playing a build you care about. And it's not about being a meta chaser. I have plenty of non-meta builds that I love using in Duviri, and I try to experiment when I can. The problem is that it might take several rolls just to get the Warframe I want, and sometimes I don't get it at all. The weapons are even worse. So many of them feel completely unusable without Forma, and getting stuck with them can make a run drag forever. That's why I want this system to change, but I also know that not everyone sees it the same way. Some players enjoy the chaos or like the challenge of adapting on the spot. And maybe that's fun for them. So if you see it differently, I'd honestly love to hear your take on it. Maybe there's something I'm missing, or maybe you have a suggestion that makes the randomizer feel less punishing. I'm open to hearing all sides, because at the end of the day, we all just want Duviri to feel fun.